Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
Welcome back to Inside the Pylon. Holy shit, Clinton. A Midwest college football podcast, joined as always by Clinton Boring. My name is Ryan Satkoviak, and I still don't have a voice, man. Yikes, that was bad. Sir, how are you doing tonight?
I'm great, man. We
Oh
said
my
when we
God.
left on Thursday that you and I could both be potentially walking into a Sunday night recap fresh off our teams losing, and they both beat some ass. It was a glorious weekend. Oh my God, so much enjoyment from the shoe, being able to be there just first of all and enjoy that moment. We can break that down a little bit for each of us, but hell of a weekend. A lot of whining, mostly from those from the SEC. And kind of embarrassed themselves. And Ohio State saw fit to send the final notice to them that maybe you don't belong. And fun weekend though. I love the on-site home games. I'm
Oh my
I'm
God,
almost
yes.
pushing forward that maybe we need to do that in the second round too. It was an atmosphere unlike any other.
No, you see, Clinton, we can't do that because the Rose Bowl has to kick off at 5:30 Eastern time on New Year's Day because God forbid they don't get their fucking sunset. And the Sugar Bowl is kicking off at 9 o'clock on a fucking work night. I am
Yeah.
so pissed off about that.
I'm off on Thursday, so I'm good.
The game is going to end at 1 in the morning. I have to be at work at 7 the next day.
Nope, I'm off. I'm
Oh
glory. I'm
my
glad I
God.
took that off.
I did not have that kind of foresight. I can echo everything you said. It was magical. It was a completely different environment than I've ever experienced at Notre Dame Stadium. Like the environment there during the regular season for like not elite games gets rightfully derided for the wine and cheese crowd because you got the olds who were there and they're just sit down, blah blah blah. We stood the entire game, and you can hear from my voice still. It was rowdy. It was rowdy. I think
Spicy.
I think being at home for the Ohio State game though was so great because it was the Schadenfreude hour on Twitter. You'll notice that Lane Kiffin couldn't stop running his mouth all weekend, and then he shut up and put
Shut
the
up.
phone down at about 8 Eastern on Saturday night. Him and Feinbaum both. It was
Well,
kind of funny. It was kind of funny, man.
yeah, I all the smack talk, especially Friday night from him, and then Saturday with SMU. Thanks a lot, committee. Thanks a lot. And just when Ohio State gets up 21-0 and you send me about Twitter, I'm like, I bet he hasn't said a word
Hasn't said a goddamn
because
thing.
the North shut you up, baby. It is
Just
a travesty, unfortunately, that I mean, it's for TV, it's great, but that Ohio State and Oregon got to square off because of how we currently have the seeding set up, and Boise and Arizona State getting a bye. That two of the better teams, one is done at the end of this next after New Year's, whereas Arizona State and Boise somehow might pull one out and be surviving. I don't know, but
no, that's for sure. But I mean, even if you look at it, unless there's, and I mean, we'll break these down later in the week, but unless you get a crazy upset on either side of the bracket with Boise State or Arizona State, I mean, you're going to have on one side of the bracket Texas versus Ohio State or Oregon.
Texas.
And then the other side of the bracket is going to be Penn State versus Georgia or Notre Dame. So you're having legitimately four tops. Like, you're still getting what would have been a 4-team playoff field in the semifinals there.
Yep.
Two
And
worthy
if
opponents.
we're 10 days away, essentially, Ryan. Just preliminarily looking at the matchups, which game do you think at this point, or which team do you think is most likely to pull the upset? No, that's not
Well,
what I'm trying to say.
define upset.
I don't know what I was going to say
Because
there.
right now, like Ohio State, Oregon, and like I think Ohio State's 2.5, and Georgia's 1.5. So I mean, for all intents and purposes, I mean that's.
I meant to clarify the upset between Arizona State, Texas, Boise State, Penn
Oh.
State. Sorry.
I mean, I'd probably say Arizona State still, because like I like Ashton Genty and what they've done against better-ish competition when they've played it this year. And I mean, that's one game against Oregon and 2 games against UNLV. But I think you touched on it at some point. It's just that's not like you're gonna get your ass kicked in the trenches by Penn State. Like that is a total mismatch in this game. And
Yep.
I think SMU is a little bit more explosive than what Boise State was offensively this year, and there's certainly probably reasons that didn't go to plan for SMU. I mean, first and foremost, Penn State's defense, but combine that with the environment with the cold. I think we had a game day on in the car when we were driving home yesterday, and they were interviewing Kevin Jennings, and he just the whole time was blowing into his hands. I'm like, oh, he's screwed. But now you get this on a neutral site, so I mean, at least there's that, and you don't have. I'm sure a lot of Penn State fans are going to travel to the game, but it's not going to still be that same home field type atmosphere. So maybe you get a little bit from that, but I mean, like Arizona State's playing, or I wonder what the layoff's going to do to them. But prior to that, they've been playing as good as anyone in the country, and I mean, Texas showed a little something, and I don't know how much of that was, they're just not playing Georgia now versus. We've both been kind of down on Clemson a little bit this year. Maybe that's just who Clemson is. But, if Texas is playing that good, man, I think they can beat anyone in the country. So it's going to be a tough game for them. But
Texas has also been one of those ones this year that's kind of a roller coaster, right? You don't know which team you're getting.
Well, Clinton,
so if the wrong Texas shows up.
That's all the teams left, man.
Yeah.
Like, we should, in theory, have a couple of really good games this weekend. But, like, if Notre Dame doesn't show up against Georgia, Georgia's going to kick their ass. If the Georgia that showed up against Georgia Tech shows up, I think Notre Dame could beat them pretty handily. It wouldn't surprise me if either of Ohio State or Oregon ended up winning that game by 10 points. I don't think it's going to happen, but I mean, wouldn't shock me. It's just like the gap between what every single team who's left in the playoff right now, and we'll throw Boise State and Arizona State in there too. The gap between what we've seen from them at their ceiling this year versus their average performance versus what we've seen them on their worst is so wide. There's not this one team where it's just like the ceiling is the floor and they're pretty consistently and they're not really deviating far from that. Like anything could happen still. Like we should have some good games, but I mean, if we got 3 more blowouts, it also would not shock me.
Well, I mean, think about Oregon. The last time we saw them, gave up almost 300 yards rushing. If there was ever any time to see Ohio State's run game come to life, it was just this past week against that supposedly vaunted Tennessee D-line and defense, and they did whatever they wanted. So if Oregon can't stop a nosebleed in the Rose Bowl, they're going to come out with a loss. And then, if you're right, if the Texas that shows up that I would even say played against Vandy, you're going to be in trouble against Arizona State. Because the thing about Arizona State and Boise, they don't have anything to lose, right? Nobody in the world other than their own fans going to pick them to win. Maybe Joel Klatt will pick them to win. He seems to like to pick some random upsets there. But no one's picking them to win. So that's a dangerous team. Now, they have a very small window in which they'd be able to win. But, we can kind of talk about that when we get into the Indiana, Notre Dame, and SMU Penn State, those small windows you had that you weren't capitalized on. You have them. And you see the upsets when teams actually capitalize on them. You have to put fear into the opponent. And, we are going to be neutral site now. I would expect a pretty big contingent of Boise State fans at that Fiesta Bowl. Obviously, their fan base is not as big as Penn State. Maybe the whole state of Idaho will show up. I don't know. Where's Arizona State? They're in the Cotton Bowl, right? So they're going to be in Texas?
No, I think the Cotton Bowl is one of the semifinals.
Okay, so are they the Peach then?
I think they're the.
Okay.
Fuck, I don't actually.
So that's Georgia.
No, the Georgia's in the Sugar Bowl. The Peach
Ohio
Bowl is the
State's
national.
Rose.
The Peach Bowl is the national title game, because the national title's in Atlanta. Hold on, hold please. It's the Fiesta Bowl.
What is?
No, wait, no. Boise's the Fiesta Bowl. Arizona State, you're right. It's the Peach Bowl.
Okay. Yeah, the national championship is just in the Peach State, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It's just not a bowl game. They don't give that a bowl game anymore. Name. It's just the Natty.
Yeah.
So again, it's in Georgia. I don't know. I feel like the Sun Devils fans. There's some money in Arizona. I think fans are going to show up.
It's a big school too.
Yeah, they've had something that this year that they haven't had in a very long time. Texas is a hell of a matchup. We know the Longhorns will show up. But now that you're into that more like 50-50 split opportunities for tickets, won't be quite such a home field advantage.
I guess we can start before we get in. I don't know how I want to sequence this. I guess we can talk about just the overall discourse before we get into the games itself.
You don't have
And
to call it discourse, Ryan. Call it what it is. The whining and bitching
well,
that was across Twitter.
so so I didn't hear this obviously because I was at the game, but apparently like the entire fourth quarter, Sean McDonough and Greg McElroy of that Notre Dame Indiana game were basically like, "Why are these people in the playoff? What are we doing here?" And
Greg McElroy. Oh, maybe they'll take the strength of schedule stuff more serious now.
well, and then Herbstreit doubled down on it on game day the next day, where he basically said the same thing. And then everyone during the Ohio State Tennessee game was like, is this dumbass going to come on and be like, hey, maybe we shouldn't have Tennessee in, or is he going to double down? And I wanted to play this, Clinton, because if you thought that he would put his foot in his mouth and not double down, you would be wrong.
That I hope next year the committee won't get caught up in what the social media and a lot of people who are fringe fans get caught up in, which is wins. They had 11 wins. They must be good. Who did they beat? I think is much more important than how many wins you have.
Clinton, why don't we just put Michigan in the playoff because they beat Ohio State? That's more important than it's who you beat, right? Not how many.
Why isn't
how many wins
Vandy
you
in the
had.
playoff?
Why didn't we put Vanderbilt in the playoff? Because they beat Alabama. They took Texas down to the wire. Like, this whole art, like, so we've talked about this ad nauseum, so we don't need to relitigate this. They're factoring in strength of schedule because they're considering you as a viable playoff team when you lost 25% of your regular season games. Like, it's ridiculous that we're even considering 3-loss teams when there are worthy 2-loss teams. But the fact that you're being considered as Alabama and Ole Miss and South Carolina when you lost 25% of your regular season games is all the evidence that you need that they're already factoring in strength of schedule. But this whole discussion of it's so nauseating. Well, now we're not going to schedule big teams. You're already not scheduling big teams. This whole myth of strength of schedule is bolstered by recruiting rankings and perceived talent on hand and 24/7 talent composite that isn't even all that accurate. And we don't even have a good gauge on how accurate it is now at the transfer portal. So essentially what these people are saying is, well, who I think is good is who should be in the playoff. Who I think is the best team should be in the playoff. And the result that's played out on the field shouldn't matter because, whatever, who gives a shit? Like, what's the point of playing the regular season then, if this is what we're going to do? Why aren't we just starting the playoff from week 1 and saying as soon as you lose your season is over?
Yep. Or just, take the top 12 teams in the recruiting rankings and just throw them in there.
There's no like, could you imagine the outcry if the the number 3 team who finished third in the Big Ten standings went 11-1 in the regular season, their only loss was to another playoff team, got left out for an Alabama team that got shit clobbered by a 6-6 Oklahoma team in November.
And
it's
lost
not like
6-6 Vandy.
And it's not like that happened in September. It happened like with 3 weeks left in the regular season, and they lost 2 more games.
So they're pining and whining about the turnovers, yada yada. How many picks did Jalen Milroe throw against Oklahoma that we watched in that game?
It's just
I've watched enough Bama to see them at their worst. You're telling me they would have walked in Notre Dame and put up that much better of a fight against?
I wish they would have played Alabama. We could have left at halftime. They would have beat the fucking shit out of them.
Yeah, it's just
they wouldn't even have gotten off the bus. It was 15 degrees outside.
Yep. It's just you sit here and you think like, what more? I don't know. They keep pining then for. They'd go back to, well, should we went past 4? Then you got others like, well, we just need more. It won't matter if you put more in.
No.
Because now 8-4 Missouri's going to whine and cry that they should be in the playoff and they got left
Clinton,
out.
Here's the thing. We knew this was going to happen. There have been blowouts every year. There's never 12 good teams.
Nope.
There's never 12 national
Sometimes
championship
there's not 4 good
caliber
teams.
Right. And I think Ohio State is a perfect example of the team this year when people would say, do you really want to put in a 12-team playoff? Because then you're going to give teams like Georgia and Ohio State chances to lose multiple games and then go on a run to win a national title. And Ohio State might make that a reality this year. So, it's good for them in the sense that a team that if this is what we want, we truly want the best team in the country to be the national champion. In that sense, it's good. But by expanding the playoff, that's going to benefit one or two teams a year. It's not benefiting all 8 teams that are now getting in.
Yeah.
Like, you're still going to get blowouts. Like, I don't understand why people are freaking out about the lack of close games this weekend when, one, it happens every frickin' year in this playoff, even when there was 4 teams, and two, every single one of the spreads in these games, Clinton, the home team was a 2-score or more. Well, they were a 2-score favorite, and they all won by 2 scores or more.
Yeah.
Winning on the road is tough, especially in a playoff type atmosphere.
Yep. And in their home stadium.
Yeah.
And you look at look for instance at Ohio State. The fans have been dying for a night game for how many months now? Looking at Fox,
all
giving
season.
them noon. Listen, Ohio State should have had more fans there. I think we all know that some of the season ticket holders definitely let their tickets go to be. I don't know if that was to conserve money to go to Pasadena, or you were just mad and wanted Ryan Day fired and you're in the we'll show him mentality. But that place was legit, Ryan. I've been to a night game before, and I know this is playoffs, so they went above and beyond. The drone show, how loud that crowd was constantly, like that's what you want to see, right? And that's what a team like Ohio State lost all year playing so many games at noon. But you got to walk into an environment like that. Could you imagine reverse with Ohio State going into Neyland Stadium? Like that place would have been insane. Like that is a really hard first thing to do, and to knock these teams who, yes, SMU's not as good as Penn State. We all knew that. That doesn't mean there wasn't an avenue for them to win. We all knew Indiana wasn't as good as Notre Dame. Doesn't mean there wasn't an avenue to win. I mean, Clemson, I guess you have respect for Clemson because they're the helmet, right, and the brand, and Dabo's done it, but they're not as good as Texas. We knew that going into the game. Maybe we felt more confident they could pull an upset because if the Texas that showed up against Georgia played, then yeah, they probably would have lost. But I don't know, man. You're just the whining and complaining kind of dampened the weekend a little bit to an extent for the enjoyment of the opening playoff, which all these MFers asked for to begin with. Get more playoffs. The SEC's pining. Give me more teams. So we can get more in. Well, guess what? Your 3 of your big boys lost 3 games, didn't make it. And then one of your other ones who did make it got sent home in a body bag. So what else you want to cry about?
Well, I think that's part of it is, I mean, I'm not the conspiratorial conspiracy theory type person where I'm sitting here saying you have the ESPN execs sitting in College Game Day production meetings saying, you guys have to find the SEC talking point. But like, you can tell by the way that ESPN covers the SEC and Fox covers the Big Ten and NBC covers the Big Ten and Notre Dame, that the agenda there is set by what the brand thing is. And for the longest time with ESPN, like when they didn't have the NHL, you could see it because they never put hockey highlights on SportsCenter, and then they got the NHL, and now it's, oh my God, Ovechkin's chasing the goal scoring record, blah 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 blah. Like it's very clear what is happening with that. But you got this expanded playoff, and I think the assumption was, well, now the SEC is going to get 4 to 6 teams in every year, and they only got 3 this year. And what is the line from Dark Knight when the Joker has Harvey Dent in the hospital room, and he's like, well, when a soldier gets blown up in Afghanistan, nobody cares, but when I kidnap a mayor, everyone loses their minds because it's not part of the plan, Clinton. 3 SEC teams in the playoff was not part of the plan, and now these sweets and talking heads don't know how to react to it.
Yeah, they wanted 5, they wanted 6. Again, this is why they're going to push for more expansion with automatic locks guaranteed for the Big Ten and the SEC so they can get what they want.
And I guarantee it's going to be just as bad on New Year's Day because we have 2 double-digit spreads again because Boise State and Arizona State got auto-buys, so we're going to have to hear more complaining about the seeding format. And, oh, well, maybe you give the conference champions auto-bursts, but they don't get auto-buys. How are we going to fix the seeding? It's like, Jesus Christ, can we just watch the football and not talk about big picture for half a second?
Yep, but let us enjoy, and when it's all over, then you can make your suggestions. But I just want to enjoy what you have. Like, I was against expansion to begin with. I like the 4. I mean, what would this year's 4 been? You would have had Notre Dame, Oregon, Penn State, Georgia.
I don't think I don't know if Penn State would have made it. I think they would have been out if they lost the Big Ten title game.
But who else would have been your fourth team then?
I have no
Texas?
idea.
Texas
I
would
don't
have
think
lost to Georgia?
I don't know if it would have been Texas either. It might have been Texas. It would have been
Would they have
Oregon.
just would they have
Oregon,
put
Georgia, Notre Dame, and
would they have put Ohio State in after
Would
just
have been
sitting at home? Moved them up because the other two lost?
maybe it would have been Texas. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know.
If ever there was a year for the BCS to just play two of them,
it might have came down to the four that we might end up with anyways. Who knows?
well, and that's like why I like the expansion too is because you look at the four, and it's like, well, there's not four that we can clearly delineate because 3 through like 8 in that instance, it's like, well, these teams are all more or less the same. But also in that instance, I don't know that. I mean, Oregon for sure, but I don't know that even like Georgia has shown enough that everyone would have been thrilled if it was just, all right, well, we're just going to play Oregon versus Georgia for the national championship. There would be other people complaining about that. So put 12 in there and let them play it out and figure it out. And if the better team, if the higher ranked teams win, then so be it. We're eventually going to get a worthy national champion. Who cares? Why are we complaining that we get to watch more meaningful football? Why? Why do people who cover this sport hate the damn sport so much? Go cover something else. If you hate the sport so much.
Line in the pockets with money because people are tuning in. Now, you
Just
did send the
goddamn.
ratings thing with what do we have, a 3.1, 3.2 for TNT's games, but those are also at the same time that the NFL games are on.
No, I told you that they were going to get smoked.
Yeah.
That's why ESPN sold them, because they knew they were going to get smoked.
And you have Ohio State, Notre Dame to carry your weight. You're going to be without the NFL this time because your games are Tuesday, Wednesday, and you're going to be without the NFL the next time because your games are Thursday, Friday. And then your natty's on a Monday, so you're safe. You're going to get your ratings. And as long as Ohio State, Notre Dame, or you're going to carry a massive amount of money in here. You're not going to get hits like you did.
You're very likely going to get 2 helmet schools.
I guess I could say Penn State, Boise might bomb since they're the noon game. Or wait, are they the noon or are they the 8? God, I'm totally backwards
No,
here
they
now.
play Penn State and Boise. I think is the
New Year's Eve.
I think it's a Tuesday night game.
It's
And
New
then
Year's Eve game.
Texas Arizona's at 1:00.
Yeah.
New Year's
So that
Day.
one may bomb midday. There's also other bowls on. People do other things. Like we used to go to the movies every year on New Year's Eve. So I don't know. People or New Year's Day. People might be doing different things. But your Rose Bowl and your Sugar Bowl are right where they should be because they're gonna massive ratings, massive. I would assume you're gonna get what Herb Street Fowler. They're calling the Rose Bowl. They're not giving that up.
Thank
And
God.
then you're gonna get what McDonough and McElroy
Yeah, I
for
think
the
it's
Sugar
McDonough,
Bowl.
McElroy. Yep.
So I don't know. Maybe we should get Colt McCoy in there.
I just like, and then the whole funniest part about it too was that they spent all night Friday, all of game day, all of the first game, all of the second game on Saturday with the same talking points, and then Tennessee, a team that beat the 4th-ranked SEC team that everyone was bitching and moaning should have been in the playoffs, came out and got dog-walked the first 10 minutes of that game. Beat off of the field. It was not competitive at all. And it blew up their whole narrative.
Yep.
That
Had
was
nothing to
blew up
say.
their whole narrative. How
Really
are you
gonna-
going to sit here and argue for Alabama when the team that beat Alabama came out and got eviscerated in front of God and everyone else watching?
Yep.
It was the highest rated game of the weekend. Everyone saw it.
What are we gonna do if Arizona State and Notre Dame knock the two darlings out? What's your narrative gonna be then? What are you gonna cry about now? Big
That-
Ten people
Clinton-
aren't crying.
Clinton, then we're just going to have an SEC playoff and everyone else can play their own game.
That's what it'll come to, right? Well, we should have just had our top 5, and that's
Clinton,
it.
let them secede. We don't need you.
Yeah,
Go
see
away.
you later. We still have good football.
Go run
Because
your
here in the
own
North,
country.
we beat the South's ass in the Civil War and in Columbus.
Go be your own frickin' country and see how long you last, you fucking hillbillies.
All right. You ready to dive into some reactions?
Yeah, we should probably do that before we delve too much further into geopolitics and make everyone angry. Which one? Where do you want to go chronologically? Where do you want to start here?
I'd say let's do our 3 teams. We'll end with Clemson, Texas, since they're not our coverage.
All right,
let's
well then-
start. Let's do chronological, but of the 3 teams we cover.
All right, well, we'll start in South Bend then because that was a lot of fun, Clinton. And I think, I don't remember the exact numbers, but the game win probability swung so wildly the first like 4.5 minutes of the game when you had Riley Leonard tipped interception at the line. You get a big third down conversion, great catch by Elijah Surratt, and Indiana tries to go tempo to avoid a review, and Curtis Rourke overthrows it, intercepted by Xavier Watts at the goal line, and the very next play, Jeremiah Love, 98 yards.
yards.
This man, 3 weeks after a knee injury and playing through the flu, the MJ flu game, 98 yards down the sideline, he is coasting. I'm not even running.
You sure he wasn't just out late the night before gambling?
And
That's the rumors I hear.
Where are you going to gamble in South Bend? Go up to the Blue Chip Casino in Michigan City.
Yeah.
He's 20. He can't even get in.
Yeah.
No, I think someone asked him after the game. They're like, did you think he was going to catch you? He's like, I was looking at the video board. He wasn't catching me. Love that. Love that confidence. But the game was pretty much over then, man. Like, Indiana could not. It was almost a mirror image repeat of the Ohio State game, minus the two special teams gaffes for Indiana. They could not move the ball at all in this game. Like, legit, I have a picture on my phone. I took it right after the last Notre Dame touchdown. There's 4:53 left in the game. Indiana had 143 yards of total offense before 2 garbage time touchdowns. And it got a little hairy there for a second. I'm not going to lie. After the second touchdown, I looked at my dad. I'm like, are they going to fucking blow this game? Do you had any like big takeaways that you wanted to kind of go through on this one? Because I'm kind of all scatterbrained because everything happened so fast in this one for me.
Watching from home, something I noticed early, the Notre Dame kind of had the Ohio State thought of, we'll let you run. We're going to take your best weapon away, which is your pass game. And so they're an RPO-based system, right? So Curtis Rourke has nothing to throw to because Notre Dame just sat in Indiana's routes for the RPO and said, okay, you're not going to have an option to throw it, so you're going to have to hand it off every time. And then they just continued to roll with that same game plan essentially the whole first half without making any adjustments and trying to do something different. And we'll talk about this with SMU Penn State too, but Indiana had their window. We mentioned this a little bit ago. Your window was that drive off the Riley Leonard score to get up 7-0 on this team and change the game, quiet the crowd. Because honestly, Brian, I feel like Indiana's defense played pretty well again.
They did.
They belong. Indiana's defense belongs on a playoff field. Their play calling and offense did not.
Nope.
But their defense does. Their problem with their defense is the same with their offense, but the defense, they don't have the depth to rotate to go 4 quarters. They get worn down. I'm watching Carpenter late in the game, and dude looks dead. He looks gassed. And that's the rest of the team, right? And you kept thinking maybe Indiana gets lucky. Maybe they spring something and get in there. And then we get into the fourth quarter where essentially it's over. But you got a shot. It's 4th down, and Cignetti punts.
I was shocked.
He waved the white flag with 10 minutes to go in the game and said, it's over. I'm going to punt. Did you hear his post-game interview?
Yeah, he was like, I had no confidence that we would get the first down. I thought we would have a better chance of getting the ball back if we punted it because our defense was playing better. Insane.
You waved the white flag. So his new tagline, Ryan, is going from Google me, I win to Google me, I punt.
It's just like, what an insane thing to say. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't even know what to make of that because that's like half saying I bitched out versus throwing your offense under the bus, but also throwing yourself under the bus because you couldn't scheme anyone open or anything.
After, pretty much all year, but after you're getting ready not only on game day set, but leading up to this game, all the shit you talked, the interview with you about the coaching awards, and you said, well, I did win them all, so that was kind of inaccurate. Well, except this one that, and I'm like, dude, like I like Cignetti a lot, but there's a cockiness factor there. If you're going to sit on game day and talk shit, saying that all you do is beat top 25 teams' asses when you haven't beaten one this year.
We don't beat them. We beat the shit out of them.
PG-13. And then you come out and that's your offensive game plan. And then to me, you didn't have much of a change in the second half because you didn't look like you could adapt. And Notre Dame at that point had already taken the game. Yes, you're right. The Jeremiah Love TD, I think essentially ended it. It wasn't over, but in the mentality it was, right? That's a
Yeah,
huge
that's
game swinging play,
the momentum swing.
and you don't have anything else that you've been able to do. So I don't know, man. That was pretty crazy to see, and just waving the white flag. Super impressed by the Notre Dame crowd. Riley Leonard, although he looks like he's 5 years old, impressive game by him. Every time I see that guy, I'm like, how's this guy in college? He looks like he's a baby.
I mean, he talks like a preteen too, just like he's just full of youthful exuberance.
Yep. And you know what? Notre Dame didn't have to work that hard, right? They got through it. They played fine. Their defense played well. What's the word on your defensive tackle?
I have
it
not
Mills?
heard anything. Yeah, it was Mills. I
So
have not heard anything.
when I sent you that he blew his knee out, because that's literally what it looked like live, and then he just got leg whipped. So I assume it looks like he got leg whipped in the quad. He's got a quad contusion. 10 days rest. I assume he's going to be fine.
Yeah, apparently, I think they said what I saw was they put a brace on him and he was like kind of limping on the sidelines, but was asking to go back in the game. And they're like, "Homie,
But you
that's
didn't
not
need
happening."
him. Like,
No.
we need you for Georgia.
Yes.
And then we need you for Penn State. And then we need you maybe for a national championship.
Yes.
Like, we can't have you risking this when this game is over. Like, if somehow Indiana made a comeback and we needed you, sure. But a great season for the Hoosiers, as we talked about with our buddy Sammy Jacobs, Hoosier Huddle. Great season for them. Just, you need more depth from the talent pool. You got to work the portal and your recruiting, and it'll get there. I think as long as Signetti continues to be successful, listen, you're not going 11-1 most likely next year. But if you're 8-4, 9-3,
Listen, 11-1 next year, they should be a playoff team because that's a tough schedule.
yes. So they'll get there. They're a fun team. It was a fun year. But congratulations, Notre Dame. Hell of a win.
It was fun, man. It was fun.
What was your favorite part outside of the Jeremiah Love touchdown?
Oh boy. What was my favorite part? I mean, I think that was the first night game I've ever been to in Notre Dame Stadium, and I say that if it's this like long-lasting thing. I don't think they started actually doing night games until like within the last 10 years. So there's not really been the opportunity, but just the atmosphere with it, the light show, the intro, everything about how they did it was so well done, and it was a completely different experience than anything I'd ever had there. So that was a lot of fun. Just great atmosphere. Like I said, we stood the entire game. It was awesome. We found pretty good parking, got out pretty easily, which was nice because my father cannot walk at all. He was hobbling around pretty good. He's like, "I can't feel half my right foot." I'm like, "Homie, I don't think that's good news, man."
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where, you know, the long-term narrative around Notre Dame is, well, you can't win a New Year's Six game, you can't win a playoff game, and there's the talk. It's like, oh, congratulations, you beat Indiana, whatever. It's, you got the New Year's Six playoff, whatever, big bowl game thing off your back, but the national perception of this team is not going to change unless they beat Georgia.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a fact of the matter. And we've kind of sort of talked about this on and off a little bit this year, but like, if Mills can't play, if Bryce Young can't play, you know, they lost Rocco Spindler too. Like, they've officially hit mission critical on the injury status if any of those guys can't play. Because now that's like 7 guys who are like legitimate rotational players in your front 7 who would not be playing in the Sugar Bowl, plus a not fully healthy Howard Cross.
What is the line opened up thus far? I assume Georgia's the favorite.
So I think when it dropped on DraftKings, it opened at Notre Dame -1.5, and that very quickly flipped to Georgia -1.5.
Okay.
It hasn't moved since, though. So
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair. I think Georgia's
I agree.
fine to be the favorite. It's hard to bet against Kirby Smart.
Okay, well, so yes, and there's something that that no one's talked about this. Like, literally no one has talked about this because they won the game right after it happened, so we didn't see it play out. We don't know that Gunnar Stockton's actually been practicing the full time because he got his clock cleaned, and it would not surprise me if he was in concussion protocol for at least the first week after that game. His eyes were in the back of his head. We've all seen the picture. So not only are you starting a backup quarterback, the guy you're supposedly starting might not even have been practicing the full time. So, like, that's not exactly the quarterback situation you want going into playing a rugged defense, which may or may not be banged up as well. So
Yeah.
it's a war of
think
attrition.
I think the thing Kirby's going to try to do is to win his natty now. It's win with defense, and that's his calling card, right? So, Mike Denbrock, you better scheme something up, and you guys better be able to pass the ball.
Yes.
Because if there's one thing Georgia can do, I understand Georgia Tech, yada yada yada, but their calling card of past title teams, we're going to take your run away and your defense, and we're going to make you beat us through the air. So.
Yeah, my hope for this game is that they just did not get in their bag all that much because they figured that they would probably be able to beat Indiana without going super exotic anyway. And they even asked Al Golden after the game. They're like, well, how worried were you at the end when they got those 2 garbage time touchdowns? He's like, oh, I wasn't worried at all. We had the game in control and I didn't want to show anything else. I'm like, okay, respect.
Absolutely. And you don't need to be getting people hurt at that point.
No, not at all.
And Indiana just window dressing on that, right? Make it look closer than it actually is. Whatever.
Don't ask how.
If that makes you feel any better,
yeah,
you scored 14 points against the backups.
Well, it definitely does because all I saw the last day and a half on Twitter was we only lost by 10 points. I'm like, yeah, well, you were down 24 with 5 minutes left. You got fucking clobbered.
Yeah.
Speaking of clobbered, oh my goodness, Clinton, Penn State looks legitimately scary good right now. Like their last 2 games out, I don't know that we have seen this level of all-around, and maybe all-around performance isn't the right way to phrase this because Drew Aller was a little shaky in this one, and there was probably some weather-related, but I don't know that we've seen Penn State look this good, like cohesively as a team in a long time, ever in the James Franklin era. Just a straight ass-kicking of SMU in this game. They had a little bit of a sluggish start on offense for Penn State in this one, but the defense took over. Kevin Jennings threw 2 pick sixes on their first 4 drives of the game. Then James Franklin tried his best to put SMU back in the game, going for it on 4th and 1 at his own 19. And 2 plays later, they picked off Kevin Jennings again and bailed him out. So
tip pass. Yep.
Tip pass did not end up hurting them, but oh my goodness, 38-10 the final in this one. Again, one that probably wasn't even as close as that because SMU's lone touchdown came midway through the 4th quarter when this one was well decided, Clinton.
Dominant D, man. Penn State's calling card all year has been their defense and the ability to stop people. And they stymied SMU. And watching Kevin Jennings in this, Ryan, I don't know how you felt. Looking in his eyes, he looked shook.
Yeah.
He looked shook before he even threw the first pick. He looked like a guy who had never seen anything like this, never felt anything like this, and then his play mimicked exactly how he felt. Now, again, talking about a window, SMU.
They had that chance.
You had the chance. Now, I've seen most people lean on the side when they're in that 4th and short that Jennings should have just gotten the first, right? And I think in an environment like that, you probably should have just taken the first. But he's a first-time starting quarterback, so first season. He's thinking, we're on the road. Let's strike and get the first touchdown and make the play. Throws it behind the tight end. Now, tight end did get his hands on it. Some people argue if your hands touch it, both hands touch it, you should catch it. That ball's pretty far behind him, and he had to turn his body.
Yep.
So, Jennings, it wasn't a horrendous decision. The guy was open.
Yep.
But, dude, if you're going to throw it, you got to put it on the money. Or just walk across the first down and live to play another down. Because just like the Notre Dame game, that flipped everything, right? And then you end up getting the ball back, pick 6. The game's over at that point. And you get the ball back again, pick 6. Yep. I believe Dominic DeLuca was the second one, right? Or was he the first?
I think so. I can tell you, I just have the box.
I feel like there were so many of them. But he's a former walk-on for Penn State, man.
Yeah.
4 years ago, walked on to this team, coming in, putting the Superman cape on for the team and getting a pick 6. I called it in my notes, the Kevin Jennings held a Christmas party in Happy Valley because he was handing out gifts left and right, man. Like, I think he had a fumble in there somewhere as well. Just SMU was overmatched almost in every facet, right? Like they moved the ball some, they had some chances, and then they'd always follow it with a turnover on downs, an interception, a turnover, something along those lines. And when you're that big of a road dog, you can't make those mistakes, man. Allen and Singleton, 3 TDs combined, 2 for Allen, 1 for Singleton. They had 160 yards combined on 25 carries. They didn't need much from the pass game. You already mentioned Aller didn't do a whole lot, whether that's by game plan and just being up 14-0 early. You don't need to be slinging the rock, risk throwing a pick. Trying to keep him healthy now that Pabula is not there. Tyler Warren did take a couple snaps. Grunkmeyer also took, I think, 1 or 2, or at least had pass attempts. Maybe that was late in the game because I was prepping to go to the Ohio State game at that point, so maybe he got in late. But if you can lean on this run game and have elite defense, you're going to be tough to beat because you're playing clock control and you're keeping the other team out of the end zone. So Penn State's found something. We'll see how much they lean into it. Probably going to get through Boise without much of a threat, barring a collapse. But when you play Notre Dame in Georgia, whose calling cards are also defense and are going to go to take away Allen and Singleton, it's going to come down to the Drew Aller show, and can he make a play to win them games?
Yeah, man, and what a golden opportunity this is for Penn State, because you get through round 1 with little adversity, little resistance. You really should not be physically challenged in this round 2 game against Boise. Not to say that they should blow out Boise. I think you don't have to squint hard to see how Boise could win this game or what the path of this being a good game is. But given the raw material on both sides of the ball here, Penn State should not be challenged by Boise in this one. So you're going to get to the semifinals with little physical toll. And on the other side of this bracket, you're going to have Georgia and Notre Dame playing a 4-quarter fist fight. And if Notre Dame gets through it after they already had a 4-quarter fist fight against Indiana where they had 3 guys get hurt, you should have the rest advantage going into that one. So this bracket sets up, I mean, we all saw it when it came out. What an opportunity this is for Penn State. And I mean, they got through that first one, no road, no stumbling, right over that speed bump. And
so, real quick, we talk about if Penn State gets in and loses the first game, and this is pre-even matchups, right? And, you know, if there was a shot in the dark, SMU could have won this.
sure.
How do the Penn State fans feel? You win these 2, then you go play Notre Dame or Georgia, and you get caught with your pants down, lose by 10+. Are you still in that same feeling, or are you happy because you got the 2 playoff wins, you get the monkey off your back? How do you think? What do you think?
I mean, that's a good question, man, because I think it's one of those where, like, context matters, right? You can sit there on the one hand and said, we won 13 games this year. We went 13-3. That's a great season. You know, we met our minimum standard for this being a good season and getting to the semifinals regardless of the opponent. You know, we probably greatly exceeded it, but it's probably one of those where it still leaves a bad taste in your mouth at the end because I don't know. And it's one of those things too. Are you the fan who cares just about watching your team and experiencing your team within that bubble, or are you that perpetually online fan who is interacting with other fans? Because it's the same thing with Notre Dame. Like, if Penn State beats Boise but then loses to whoever comes out of Notre Dame, Georgia, does that really change the national narrative about Penn State at all? It's like, congrats, you beat an SMU team that no one thinks should have been in the playoff anyway, and then the Group of 5 champion in the second round. Like, you did the bare minimum in the playoff, and then you lost.
I think you get crapped on for it, right? As you just said, you got the easiest path, the path that arguably Oregon should have had, even being the winner, right? The easiest path for the 1 seed. The absolute easiest path, and then you finally meet a real team that's at your level, and you lose. Like, great, you got the 2 wins, but now what do? You played the actual team, you couldn't get past them again. Because we say James Franklin in big games, right? Like, it's a big game from the standpoint of a playoff, but it's not a big game in standpoint from opponent, and that's no disrespect.
Right.
Excuse me, goodness sakes, rude of me. That came out of nowhere. From SMU and Boise, they're not the same level as Georgia, Notre Dame, even in Indiana, right? Because they're not going to touch you in those ways. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's like I think in 2018 when Notre Dame went 12-0, I think they played Syracuse towards the end of the year, and poor Jacob's going to catch a stray here, and I think Syracuse was like number 13 in the country or something like that, and Notre Dame beat the crap out of them. In the national narrative, like, it goes down as a top 10, top 15. I don't remember exactly where they were ranked at the time, but everyone else looks at it. It's like, who cares? It's Syracuse. And it's kind of the same thing here. There's like those like 7 to 10 teams that you could beat in a spot like this where it gives you some sort of ammunition nationally to be like, yes, we're changing the perception of this team. Which sucks because I think that's a terrible way to watch the sport, but I think that's kind of how both you and I watch the sport, for better or worse. So I think it just depends on what type of a fan you are. Because it's like one of the Notre Dame podcasts I listen to, they're like, okay, well, you got because I think Ari Wasserman was talking about it on their show. They were saying, does this change, like, does this count as the postseason win for Notre Dame? And it's like, yes and no. And Pete Sampson's podcast, the point was, okay, well, you've now done like the bare minimum for this season to not be considered a disappointment. But it's probably not considered a success unless you beat a team like Georgia in the playoff.
Which essentially they're in the national championship, right? So,
well, I mean, then you'd have to get through Penn State, and that's no.
I'm sorry, you said Notre Dame. My bad.
Yes,
I was still thinking for Penn State.
But yes,
for it to not be a disappointment because you had to beat a big boy, you'd be in the natty at that point.
Right.
But for Notre Dame, yes.
But again, I don't know if the calculus on that is different for Penn State fans then, because to get to that point where you would be playing Georgia or Notre Dame, you would have already won 2 playoff games.
Yeah.
One of the last 4 standing. I mean, that's got to count for something.
Absolutely.
How do you want to tackle this Ohio State game, man? Because that is exactly what I thought that they were going to do to Michigan, and I heavily invested my own personal capital in that happening. And why was that not the Michigan game plan?
Ryan, how do I want to tackle it? I want to tackle it with a damn smile, buddy, because I reverse psychology the shit out of this.
Yeah,
I picked Tennessee to win so that way we would win. I did it on purpose. Now, lightning only strikes once most times.
I told you. You were that was so off the wall that even Larry's sitting over here, not even just hearing it through my headphones.
That's okay. I did it on purpose. I was going to be right or I was going to be happy. And I can tell you I'm way more than happy. I am elated beyond belief. For all the Buckeye fans listening, you can finish this sentence for me. OH. What a hell of a game, man. Freezing cold. I walked out of my house. Now, here where we live, it's a lot flatter, so it's way more windy than when you get down into downtown Columbus on campus. But I took the dog for a walk about 2 hours before we left, and I was like, holy shit. I might be female after this because my privates might fall off because I'm so cold. It's
okay.
And so I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to extra bundle up. So my layers were the long heated underwear, 2 pairs of sweatpants, because I hate jeans, 2 pairs of sweatpants. I had a long sleeve shirt that's a little more tighter fitting to get underneath, then another long sleeve shirt, a hoodie, jersey, winter coat. Then I had one of the hats that kind of come over your face, cover your mouth, and then I had my toboggan. Buddy, I didn't feel cold at all. The only thing that got cold was the tip of my nose because I was so excited during that entire game with how it was going. I want to give props, though, as I think many Ohio State fans have, to the Tennessee Volunteer fans who showed up, showed out. Y'all were really loud pregame. And that was the extent of it because it was over after that. But pretty good interactions. Only a few Tennessee fans who there were kind of talking the smack. They were downgrading OSU Stadium. I'm like, listen, you guys are just jealous because of the history that's here, and your stadium is great, but it's literally just pieces of metal everywhere and how it's formed. Like, don't knock the shoe. Outside of the bathroom situation, Ryan, that was god-awful. I did go pee with Santa, though. Me and Santa took a piss together.
That's something.
It was pretty cool, right? No. The atmosphere was great. You and I talked about this pre-show. This was a horseshoe atmosphere. I've been to a night game before. It was second to none. I know a lot of people said the Notre Dame atmosphere probably takes the cake. I would encourage you, if you have some way to figure out how to tune in and really feel the Ohio State one, Ohio State might have rivaled that one. The energy that they had, you could tell they had wanted that 8 o'clock game all season long because they spared no expense with the fireworks, the drone show, which was fantastic. I had to cut off recording it because it actually went on during the next play, and we were laughing because it looked like Nico was looking up at the drone show between plays the one time because they're so checked out at this point from getting their ass beat. So the actual game, So we start the game off. Ohio State takes the ball, which I was thrilled with. Here's your window, Tennessee, just like every other team had. You had them in third down, you get the sack, and then you yank on his face mask to get it. You shot yourself in the foot. I still don't think you win that game if you get to stop there. But you had a better shot. And then Ohio State breaks your back with a beautiful dime from Will Howard to Jeremiah Smith. All I heard leading into this game from Tennessee, and even Kirk Herbstreit, I believe, who it was, commented on it, was about the corner from Tennessee who was going to put up a challenge to Jeremiah Smith. Well, son, have fun going back to Rocky Top because he cooked your ass.
He go learn today.
There is no corner, and I feel 100% confident in saying this, no corner in the country that can one-on-one cover Jeremiah Smith. It's non-existent.
I bet Ben Morrison could.
Don't
not
think
right
so.
Well, not right now. Because
Well, we didn't get to see Will Johnson because he chickened out. Not that it mattered because Jeremiah Smith only had 2 targets in that game.
Yeah, they. I mean, listen. I think the coverage scheme Michigan ran on him was part of the reason for that.
Yeah, they tackled him anytime he caught the ball or before he caught the ball.
Yeah, then you were bracketing him.
Yeah,
but see, like when you're talking about an athletic freak like that, asking anyone to go 1v1 is not a winning proposition.
So that's what was surprising me, though. My brother-in-law are sitting here watching Tennessee continually. They'll put the safety in the middle of the field or shade him to the other side. I'm like, you guys are just asking to get burnt. You're not going to stop him. Like, where is this confidence coming from? And the kid ate all night long. And Ohio State did a great job feeding their playmakers, which we talked about in the pregame show. Like, what were you going to do? We knew, even though I picked Tennessee to win, again, reverse psychology it, but we knew Ohio State was not coming out and running the same stupid stuff they did against Michigan. We 100% knew that. But you still didn't know where you were going to get as far as a confidence level. And what I watched with that team, Ryan, in the first half, I know the second quarter, halftime, we were 21-10. I could feel the puckering of the fans beside me. I'm telling you right now. They're sitting here in the second quarter. Why are we running the ball? Why are we running the ball? This is BS. I'm like, can you guys just be satisfied with anything?
Nope.
And so my brother-in-law started to get a little tense too. And I pointed out at halftime, I said, look at that team walking into the tunnel right now, and that's Tennessee. I said, what signs of life do they show? They have none. Their heads are down. They look exhausted. They have been physically beat up for 2 quarters. They have nothing in the tank to beat you. I said, Ohio State's not going to lose this game because Tennessee's shown me nothing to prove that they could. The interception that Howard threw, you could have argued that was pass interference. The kid was in the midst of tackling Jeremiah Smith before the ball even got there. The one field goal they got, the late hit on Nico, or not the late hit, the roughing the passer. Like, Nico bounced, when the kid hit him, he bounced off his left tackle and then hit the ground. Like, I don't know. Whatever you want to say with that. They did nothing to impress me that they were going to beat Ohio State. Nico's a good quarterback. I think he's got a really bright future. It's a tough spot when you have a $20 million roster that plays like a $20 million roster. There's no team in this playoff when that team plays like that. I feel confident in saying that it's going to beat them, especially with Will Howard going 24 of 29, looking like freaking Aaron Rodgers out there, dicing people up. Like, Will Howard, where the hell was this shit against Michigan? All right, you were partially concussed and we didn't throw the ball. So I was thrilled, man. What a bounce back from a team. We'd also mentioned this in the pregame show. Ryan Day has had a proclivity for having a bounce back. 2019 Clemson to 2020 Clemson. They lost to Michigan and then almost beating Georgia. This team is dangerous.
Cat bounce.
Yeah, this team is dangerous. I'm so excited that we finally get the Oregon-Ohio State rematch. I don't know how excited you are for it. Let's get your thoughts real quick on the game.
Well, I mean, it'll be a fun rematch for sure, but I wanted to spin it back to you and ask the same question that we've already discussed twice is, if Ohio State comes out and loses again to Oregon, was this enough to cool the heat on Ryan Day? Or is it still we're going week by week with this dude right now?
I've been on the side.
You bought yourself some peace, but the second you lose again, we are rioting.
I exactly think that's going to happen with some of the fans. As Kirk Herbstreit called them, the lunatic fringe.
I mean, to be fair,
fans for Ohio State.
To be fair, he was not wrong.
Yes. Like, I think those overly dramatic Twitter handle people on there, they will be firing it off. Ryan Day's safe. Ryan Day's a great coach. He showed it to you right there. I think Ryan, honestly, if you win the national championship, you're still going to have those Twitter people. Well, but we didn't meet Michigan, so this season's incomplete.
No, did you see the game day segment?
No, I did not.
They did a whole college game day segment. Marty Smith went to the Victory Lounge in Columbus or the Victory Club or whatever it's called and interviewed Ohio State fans, and it was about how depressed they are about losing to Michigan again and about how, well, this is just going to be an unsatisfying season because we lost to Michigan.
Yep. And that's like, I'm not trying to devalue that game, and I'm tired of talking about it, but Ohio State fans can't let it go. I'm not devaluing the importance of that game. It means everything. But it means a little less than everything now that you still survive and get to go to a playoff and win a national championship. You're letting the Michigan fans eat at you by continuing to say, well, you could win a natty, but we still beat you. I don't care. Give a shit. We're hoisting the trophy while you're playing in the ReliaQuest Bowl against the shoulda, coulda, woulda team in Alabama. So,
you know what's funny though is based on what happened with Tennessee this weekend, I do now wonder if Michigan might win that game.
They may. I hope they do.
That would be so funny.
Just to spit in the face of the SEC some more.
It just means more unless we lost than we actually didn't want to be there.
So to answer your question directly, I don't think even with a natty, there's going to be fans who aren't satisfied, and that's sad, right? Because they're going to let that game stand in the way of celebrating. And even if they get to the natty and lose, they're going to still be a chunk of fans. We need to fire Ryan Day. He can't win the big one after he just potentially won 3 big games to get you there.
Well, that was just asinine because if you win the national championship with the path Ohio State had,
hardest path,
you're legitimately going from number 8 Tennessee to number 1 Oregon to number 4 Texas to number 5, 6, or 2 on the other side of the bracket. 4 top 10 wins in a row. That's insane.
Yep.
That is an insane run.
Yep. So I don't know. These lunatic fringe fans have to learn to deal, man. Enjoy the ride. Because it could be over in Pasadena. Oregon's the best team in the country right now. They're number 1 for a reason. They're 13-0 for a reason. They came in and took the Big Ten for their own in their first season here. Dan Lanning is a great coach. He already got you once with a snafu that no one saw getting in there with 12 men on the field to take that penalty there. My thing is, I guess we save it too much talking about it because we're going to preview it at some point, but there's a revenge factor there, right? Like Ohio State's game for this one was a prove it factor. We want to go out one more time in the shoe, send these seniors out or these guys whose last game is there and win this thing. And they dominated. So they proved it. Now they have a revenge factor. They feel like they should have won the first game. They didn't get it. They've played already one game in the playoff and proved very well that they belong. And now they get another swing. Will they win? I don't know. Will I pick them? I don't know. I think it's hard to bet against Oregon at this point. I
already did.
They're such a tough team. They're so fast, and they have receivers that Tennessee doesn't. And we'll leave it at that before we get eventually to previewing this. Hopefully we can get our guy Dale Bliss on. We don't even need an extra Ohio State person. I'll just gladly sit here and talk and debate with him the whole time if he'd like. But it's going to be a great game. It's a fun game to watch, a fun game to be a part of, as you probably feel the same. We both got to witness history, which was pretty cool.
It was fun. All I'll say about that is if Ohio State plays that way, they're winning the national title. I don't know if they can play that way 4 games in a row. They've shown literally nothing that would suggest that they have the capacity to do that this year.
Well, Brian, they haven't shown the ability to even play like they did against Tennessee yet this year.
That's true.
I know they played fine against Oregon, but if that team that played Saturday night would have played that way in Eugene,
they would have won.
They'd have beat them by 2 scores.
They would have won.
But they didn't.
That was literally like
that was an A game. Ohio State hasn't played an A game all year.
That was an A+ game. That is the ceiling.
Yeah. So
in Ohio State,
can you do it?
I think they're the one team in the country that if they play their A+ game, no one's going to beat them.
I agree.
Like there's not a team in the country that's capable of beating Ohio State if they play an A+ game. If they play an A- game, I mean, Oregon or Texas could probably get them. Georgia might be able to get them. That's probably it, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't really have much to add on Texas and Clemson. I think it was admirable the way Clemson kind of fought back late, and I kind of tuned this one out and started making dinner because it was a 14-point game or something, and I'm like, I'm not really. And then I went downstairs to check the score. I'm like, oh shit, Clemson just made it a 7-point game, and I kind of tuned back in, and then they got stuffed on the goal line, and that blew the cover. But the same thing with Texas, man. Like that was, again, I don't know if that's just they're not playing Georgia's defense now, or they have a mental block with Georgia, or, is it that Clemson's, that's the Clemson we've seen all year. But, I mean, Quinn looked a little bit better. They ran that outside zone very well. And if Texas is running the ball that well, they're going to be a tough team to beat, man, because they are good on the offensive line. They have a very good defense. And that was a team that coming out of the SEC title game, I was pretty down on them. Like I don't know that I would have picked Clemson to win outright, but I certainly put money on Clemson to cover the spread in that one. But I mean, the same thing with Ohio State. If Texas plays that well, I don't see a way that Arizona State beats them this weekend. And then whether they get Ohio State or Oregon in the semifinals, I think that's going to be an incredible game.
Yep. I think we've got, barring another upset, which college football happens, the semifinal projections are pretty damn elite.
Oh, yeah. That's going to be fun.
Very elite.
Like, we got some stinkers this weekend for sure. We might get a couple stinkers this weekend. I think we should get at least 2 good games, hopefully. Maybe 3.
Mm-hmm.
But then the semifinals and then the championship, I think, should be classics. Like that. And that's what the sport should be, man. Like, if we're getting stinkers in the first round of a 12-team playoff, that's fine. As long as we're getting elite matchups in the semifinals and finals. Like, that's all that matters to me.
Yep. Really, the only stuff I had Clemson, Texas was Clemson couldn't run. Part of that is Phil Maffa's injured. Sounds like he's going to require shoulder surgery. But Cade Klubnik had to put the Superman cape on, man. 336 yards, 3 passing TDs, carved up the Texas pass defense in a way that nobody else has. So there's something to watch, though, right? Like, if Klubnik, with much less, I don't want to say athletes, but not at the level of an Oregon, not at the level of an Ohio State, did that to them. And then, it's the same factors when they played Georgia. Do you get the Texas that's played Georgia twice when they play Oregon or Ohio State? Because if they do, they're going to beat by double digits.
Yep.
Texas, 292 yards on the ground, though, 4 TDs. Like, oh my God.
Very good.
They're going to be hard to beat if they can maintain that. But we've said, I think it's the more, when I'm thinking of the teams, the most volatile that I've felt like it's Texas, especially offensively. Defense consistent, offense is just.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Now, the healthier Quinn Ewers gets, sure, they'll be fine. But if Quinn Ewers has an I don't know kind of game before he goes and transfers to Notre Dame after this season, apparently, and then they might get knocked out of the playoff.
Tampering with your rivals. Who doesn't love it?
Well, see, listen, that's the thing that gets me, right? Like, if there's any truth behind that and Quinn is playing the game of where his next venture may be, I think that bites you in the ass at some point because your mind's not focused on where it needs to be. These are not 28-year-old Tom Brady's playing. These are college kids. Quinn's thinking of his next move. He knows he's not going to get to the draft to be the top quarterback. That's Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. So why not go somewhere else and make $5 million?
If he leads him to a national title, I think he would have played his way into the first round.
Potentially. We thought that a few years ago when we had some of the other quarter, and then we didn't get one drafted till the 4th round. Remember, people worked really hard to get Malik Willis into the first round.
That was weird.
And that didn't go very well.
Yeah, but he didn't lead anyone to a national title, though.
No. So,
Liberty.
But also, here's the thing. I think that changes a little bit for Texas, where we'll wrap up here on this one. Steve Sarkisian had 3 weeks to game plan for this game. He gets 10 days for the next one, and then he gets 10 days for the one after. There's no, and that's for everybody. But Joel Klatt did make a good point. He's like, when you give Sarkisian 3 weeks to prepare for you, that's a pretty elite offensive mind that he's probably going to beat you. But now he's back in a short window, less than a bye week, and you got to do it 3 times. So we'll see.
That is all for me today, unless you had anything else from the weekend you wanted to touch on.
No, we just bring up scheduling. I think Ryan and we are taking a holiday break. We will be back Thursday night, I believe, as our regularly scheduled Thursday night show. I'm sure we're going to talk some upcoming games, brief you on how our holidays maybe went. We're going to see maybe if we can get Dale on the show with us. I think we'd originally said like for a Sunday night show, just because I'm sure these guys are going to be prepping to leave. I would say even more for Ohio State. Probably not going to get an Ohio State guy because they may already be in Pasadena at that point, or in the midst of traveling on a Sunday or Monday night. So Dale may be the most logical person for us to snag. So maybe we'll have Dale on to chat with us, or maybe we'll swing another Notre Dame talk with Jack or something like that for you guys.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
And then Monday night, I think we're aiming to be our pick show since games are Tuesday.
Will be Tuesday. So whole messed up week here. That'll be fun though.
Gonna be crazy.
Looking forward to it though, guys. Thanks everyone for hopping on with us again tonight. We will be back with you Thursday. Everyone enjoy your holiday season with family, friends, whatever you're doing. Hopefully some time off work. Not for me. I gotta work.
See ya. Merry Christmas, folks.
Bye-bye.
Oh, I was holding that one in.
I've been holding in a fart too.